It's not easy, but it's necessary to share this story, this event, this period in my life. It's another step in my healing. It's another step that reaffirms that I am not that person I was 7 years ago. It helps me to remove another layer of shame so that I can better do the work that I do. That what I ask other men to do, that I can also do. And here's one example. I know that I didn't start out in life with the intention of being abusive and violent towards women. I know I wasn't born that way.
In my young years, I was so stubborn and independent. I said, I don't need anyone. I don't need help from anyone. Your God or my God or anybody else's. I'll take care of my own responsibilities. And then, sadly, I went on to destroy myself almost, and my wife and my family.
But still today, I must say that sometimes it's hard, because you can't just sort of change like overnight. It's a long process of trying to change. Me, like even today, I'm still, I have a lot to work on.
And I found myself saying, even before I went into any kind of healing, telling Rick, you're supposed to be an equal part in this relationship. But a lot of times I was left juggling all this stuff, children, home, relationship, always trying to make things okay.
Remember many a times I remember saying to myself or saying to other people that I'm not going to be, I don't want to be like my father when he drinks. And I'm not blaming my father. Because I didn't turn out like him. I turned out worse. My father mostly was abusive when he was drinking, and I believe that part of his process was when he got to a certain amount of drinking, something happened in his head, and I think it was the conditioning he received in the army to be a killer and go kill the enemy, and that he wasn't deprogrammed. So after a certain amount of booze and with whatever frustrations he had to deal with, he usually snapped, and he'd start arguing with people who were in the house, start fighting. And if there was nobody left around, then it was usually my mom, and I was usually trying to save her, get her out of the house, and of course he would catch me.
My dad, he was, as when I was a child, I didn't know what I did. It was something that he didn't approve of. I guess, he wanted everything to be, I guess, perfect, or wanted us to be quiet. And I guess at the time I was playing, and I think I might have knocked something over, or, and, next thing, you know, my dad was coming towards me and I guess, like, you know, slapped me and you know, just started kicking me.
Most of my childhood, I from a really early age till about 10, I barely remember my father.
The usual slaps, punches. There were times he grabbed me by my hair and ran my head against the side of the house. We lived in a one-room log cabin, so I mean, you know, there was, so against the log, basically. There was one time I remember he shot at me as I was trying to run away.
He always, you know, threatened to say, I should break your legs so you won't walk. Or, you know, break your arms so, you know, you won't touch anything and stuff like that. And, and just remembering, like, you know, my mom stepping in and, you know, crying and telling him to leave me alone. And it was like, you know, he would like throw her across the room or throw her up against the wall and start beating my mom up.
I remember certain times my mom being beaten up and stuff, but those were major incidents. You know, I don't remember the day-to-day stuff, the stress or whatever.
So this particular night, my father, after this fight outside with his brother, came in and he sat he sat in his chair, and I was hiding under the bed. I was too terrified to get out of there, get out of the house. It was like I was frozen. I couldn't move even if I wanted to. And it was like slow motion. I saw the door opening, and in walked, I guess it was my uncle with a piece of stick about this long. And my father, I guess at this point, through the exhaustion of fighting and drinking, had passed out. And I saw my uncle grab this stick and start beating my father around the face until I couldn't recognize my father's face anymore. And then I saw my uncle, after lay the stick down, go over to where my father had his gun, took the gun out and pumped 3 bullets in him. And I felt responsible for my father's death because he was my hero, and I didn't do anything to save him.
So you cry to be with your mom, to be held, to be loved, and to be given affection. But she didn't come. And you cried and you cried till you got exhausted and fell asleep. Then you wake up and then you cry again.
Oh, God bless her heart, Mom. I mean, you know, she had a lot to deal with, but she was never there. You know, once she got drinking, she was never home. And if she was home, she usually came home drunk, and my relationship with her became sexual. I became her toy. I had to do things sexually, and she was never home.
I love my mom so much that you know, I was so close to her. I was always by my mom's side, I found. Like she gave me all the hugs and the kisses that I needed as a child when she was there.
So as a result of her not being home, I started stealing candies, naturally, and that was to feed us all, but also had a little stash, and that little stash got me into trouble because my sister found out about it, and she got ticked off at me for not sharing with her. So she told my mom. My mom told the cops, and I went off to training school. I went, And when I got to Toronto, we went by train. Got off the train and stood on the street corner. I happened to look up, and this thing changed. You know, there was colors, and it changed. And I remember jumping like about 6 feet in the air. I'd never seen a traffic light before. The only thing I could relate to were the trees. Everything else was foreign. I remember during the, I guess it was the intake interview, and this man's asking me, when were you born? And I was trying to go back in time to, you know, what day were you born? You know, so I'm trying to figure out what day was I born. Oh, was it Friday? Was it Sunday? Was it Wednesday, right? And so when I said, well, I guess Friday, you know, he laughed. And then he said, well, geez, aren't you the stupid fucking Indian? And that was the beginning of being shameful about being Native. And as time wore on, I would stay out of the sun. I even tried washing it off one time. It seemed to be, being Native was to be ridiculed, was to be shamed, was to be taunted. And now it was, you know, like I was starting to get beaten up. I was being sexually abused by the older boys, and which added to the shame. So, you know, I think it was like about the 15th or December that, you know, boys started packing up their little bags, and their names were being called, and they were going home for Christmas. And I remember December 22nd, I got up that morning and I said, you know, I convinced myself that this was the day that, I mean, it takes 3 days to travel to Northern Ontario by train, and so here it is, you know, 20, I'm determined, I'm excited, and my mom had said that, you know, I'm going home for Christmas. And so I packed my little bag and got dressed, and I went to my locker. There was a horseshoe shape where individual lockers were, and after breakfast at 8 o'clock, I sat there, folded my arms, and refused to do anything else, because I said, no, I'm going home for Christmas. And because my mommy said I was going home for Christmas. And I sat there from 8 o'clock at night, in the morning, till about midnight. December 23rd, I did the same thing. December 24th, did the same thing. Finally, at midnight, I realized I wasn't going home. And that really tore me. That really tore me apart. I felt I wasn't wanted anymore. I felt that I was unlovable.
So for quite a few moments in your day, you were abandoned. And you remember this. And these fears come to you as a child, as a teenager, and as an adult. Your fear of abandonment.
I found that a lot of times, I guess I have been a violent person as probably through my teen years.
Alcohol began to fit in when I went into foster homes when I was about 13. I went into this one foster home where this old guy had a pattern. Every Saturday he went to the liquor store to purchase his alcohol, and he would stash it in the woodshed. And he also sexually abused me in the basement of a church, of all places. And I remember one day just going in the woodshed and taking the bottle, and it was a Mickey, and I remember drinking it. And I remember a change, a very profound change began to take over me. I began to feel extremely powerful. I began to feel extremely bigger, that I was more capable to do anything that I could ever possibly dream. I couldn't do that when I was sober. In this bottle, it seemed I had found the magic potion.
Because we're told that alcoholism, dope addiction knows no bounds. Now, if I had an enemy, I wouldn't wish it upon them.
I thought it was okay at first for, it was like something that a lot of young kids that I hung out around with, and watching my mom and dad drink, I thought it was something that was okay.
So for the next few years, that's how I survived. I sold my body to whoever had the money to pay for my body, for my services. They could do whatever they wanted to do. But I had to be drunk or stoned. I couldn't do this sober. God, everywhere I went, it seemed to be, I was a sexual object to people. There were times when I used to look in the mirror, see if there was this flashing neon light on me, like use me, abuse me, I'm a sexual toy. Alcohol was, and I don't want to make this sound like alcohol was the reason. I understand today I made the choice to hit her. I really don't fully understand the whole circumstance, but there was an argument, and the next thing I knew, I was on top of her, punching her.
I guess in my mind, I thought it was okay. I thought that it was a thing that every man did. Like watching it through my brothers who are older than I am. I remember them beating up their girlfriends or their wives on account because of something they did wrong. I wouldn't know whether it would be wrong or what it was. It was something that I thought that was okay, and trying to, in a way of, I guess, scaring them at a point of where they're never going to do you wrong.
Well, it used to happen a lot when we were drinking, like just a slap or a push or something like that. But the first one that really stands out is when I was pregnant and we were both sober, and he was angry about something.
I guess even for me, it was a lot of being jealous. I was sober. It didn't have nothing to do with alcohol at all, which at one point I thought it was. Like, I was drunk when it happened. But now at this time I was like straight sober. And it started in our kid's bedroom. The next thing I knew is that I think I might have punched her over or pushed her over really hard. I remember her trying to get up, and I kneed her in the face. And then suddenly I just stopped. I remember stopping. Like, it's something that goes through your head so fast, of where it's happened, it's done. Like you're unaware of what you're doing, because you're so angry. And then the next thing I remember is it was like I was coming down on this high kind of thing. Like, it's like things sort of got blurry, and I was like sitting on the bed, and I says, call the police.
time I called the cops on Rick was the first time that my children seen him hit me. Like at that moment, I didn't really want to call them, but I was thinking about my children. Like that if they saw him hit me and that I didn't do anything about it, that made it okay. And I didn't want them to think like that. I wanted them to, know that what he did was wrong.
And then she said, well, I'm leaving. Of course, I interpreted that she was going to go with him. And, so drugs, jealousy. And now she's going to go with him. She's going to sleep with him. She's going to have sex with him. They're going to laugh at me. And I just blew it. I think it started off with a slap, 1 or 2, maybe 3, 4. And she was screaming. And it was the intensity was so much. I mean, I was feeling really intense, and when she screamed, it seemed like she was screaming from inside my head. And I started punching her, and she was on the floor, and I started kicking her. I kicked her on the side of her body. I kicked her in the head, back here. I tried to kick her in the face. And I was just out of control. I grabbed her by the hair and I was dragging her around. And there was stairs. I picked her up and I threw her down the stairs. And I told her to get the fuck up here, and she's laying there and she says, I can't move, and I didn't believe her. And I went down there and I started kicking her. She kept telling me, I can't move, I can't move. So I picked her up and slung her over my shoulder and took her upstairs. And she kept telling me, I can't feel my legs. And I remember one of the times she said that I took a lighter. I said, you'll feel this. I put it at her feet. And I think it was then, when there wasn't a reaction, that something began filtering in. That maybe she wasn't faking this. I wanted to show her that, that I had some feelings of remorse, that I was sorry yet, and also, that I loved her. And the only way I felt I could show this was having sex. And so she says, go ahead, you go ahead. And so I did. Mildred is a quadriplegic from the neck down. She'll never, ever be able to walk. She's a prisoner of her body. And I did that to her. Yeah, I was sentenced to 4.5 years in a federal penitentiary. Which today seems so grossly unfair. You know, like Mildred's a prisoner of her incomplete body. That I, by my choice of actions, that I did this. For the rest of her life, she has to live this way. And I get to walk around. And I'm not blaming drugs or booze for what happened. It was my actions. It was my choice to hit, to kick, to punch, to slap, to throw her down the stairs. It was my choice not to listen to what she was saying. It was my choice not to hear the no, I don't want to have sex. It was my own listening to my own fears, you know, not calling an ambulance. And I mean, she could have died. Violence is learned in various ways. The first form of violence, of course, is the home. There's violence there, and there is no other message being delivered to the child that violence is not acceptable, that violence does harm, has serious consequences, is against the law, is has physical as well as emotional and psychological impacts that severely damage people. If he's not getting those messages, then he begins to believe that, or the child begins to believe that violence is acceptable.
You're so stupid.
You what? You lost a fight?
In the case of male children, it is reinforced by their fathers that boys need to be tough.
You never lose a fight. What's the matter with you?
To talk about feelings and to cry is considered to be feminine.
You're no fucking good. You're just a little girl. Go into town and beat 'em up. And don't come home until you do.
Cycle of violence is an idea developed by Lenore Walker, and it has 3 stages. One of them is the tension building stage, where things begin to escalate. The man's tension begins to mount.
You haven't gone yet?
Get off my fucking back. Give me a fucking beer. I want a fucking beer. Shut those kids down. Shut up. Shut the fuck up about this milk.
It will lead him into the next stage, which is the explosion, which is the actual violence, the hitting, the pushing, the kicking, the scratching, the biting, and can end in death for his partner.
I told you to fucking leave me alone. Fuck!
And then the next stage is the honeymoon stage, where he is where he's sorry, begs for forgiveness, makes promises that it'll never happen again, buys flowers, presents, dinners, and pampers his partner. You okay?
Don't
Hey.
hit me. Don't hit me. No.
Oh, I won't hit you, honey. Hey, listen, why don't I take you out to dinner tonight, eh? Can you get a babysitter? Yeah. No, I won't hit you. I won't hit you. I won't hit you. You know, I'm sorry. This will never happen again. You know, I love you. I love you, honey. I love you. In his heart, he may be truthful, but the one thing that's missing is the steps of change. What is he going to change? What behavior?
I was told by my grandfather the meaning of love is meaningless if you're not sincere. If you're not sincere in your heart, it's just a word. Try living it. Love, kindness, consideration, patience, and the ability to accept your friends and other people the way they are, not the way you would like them to be.
Well, first of all, you know, sobering up, straightening out, getting off drugs, getting off booze. So I can begin to feel.
You know, instead of having that mean old dad and for them to carry on that cycle, I wanted to, like for me, it's something that I would really like to break.
And the other thing is trying to find an easier way out than just packing up my children, because I remember how that was, being packed up and to leave. It was really traumatic. My mom used to do that to us a lot, pack us up and leave. And it was really hard to live like that. Always a different town, or not sleeping in our own bed, not having our home. Because they don't stay away. You know, you can't stay at home and hope that they'll leave. It's not like that.
My healing began in A618. That was range A6, cell 18 in Stony Mountain Penitentiary. And finally I said, okay, let's make a deal here. I said, all I'm asking for is one chance. One chance for the rest of my life. I said, I'm asking for this one chance. Let me run with it for as long as I can run with it, and if I drop it, then it's over.
It took, dear friends, a long, long time to be comfortable in the path of healing. But I must tell you one thing and share this with you. My life got so much better. It was like being reborn.
The first thing was hearing about Native spirituality. And it seemed like this was almost the first time. Just outside of the range I was on, in the quadrangle, they had the sweat lodge, and I used to Sundays when they had it, or you know, once a month, I used to look down, and there was this sense that came over me. It was like it was speaking to me. When the drums were playing, It's a sense. The sense I got was the drums were speaking to me, but I was so ashamed of, you know, who I was, what I've done, and where I was at. I was just totally ashamed of myself. That I felt I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy enough to go down and participate in this sweat lodge ceremony. That I wasn't worthy enough to go to a pipe ceremony. That I wasn't worthy enough to, you know, to even smudge myself. It's just, that's how deep my shame was. But all these things, you know, I began asking, like some of the older guys who were involved, and it's, you know, like just it was the beginning of this process of being guided by the unseen hand. In 6 years, I've managed to graduate from high school, start university. In 6 years, I've managed to take up counseling courses. For approximately two and a half years, I've worked as an alcohol and drug counselor. Currently, I work as a counselor and facilitator for men who are abusive and violent in their relationship. ASAP operates under the umbrella of the Helping Spirit Lodge Society, which is a society about addressing the issue of family violence within the Native community. The society has a transition home, and also ASAP is the program for men. And also there is a pre-employment life skills program for women called Choices.
I believe that ASAP has given me a lot of different tools to try to deal with the issue in a different way, in a positive way, instead of, you know, try to stand back and try to solve it before, like, trying to use a positive way instead of trying to use it a negative way.
He's just a bit easier to live with. But, like, that's the plus side for me. That's, like, I've been preparing myself to leave because I'm feeling that, that I don't think he's ever going to change, at least not while he's with me, because it's too easy. I make it too easy for him. We've lived this life so long doing the same things over and over that it's hard for me to change, it's hard for him to change, because we're stuck in this thing. And if I leave, like, maybe he'll realize, but what I'm hoping is that the relationship with his children will be, at least he'll know that his actions have a direct effect on his children.
I guess, you know, I'm still, like, you know, in a healing process of where, you know, I think I'm doing a lot better, of where I see in their eyes of where they can trust me and, you know, say, Dad, can I have this or that? You know, it's something that, you know, I have to play a more positive role for my children.
Yes, I know Rick can change. I know he can. Because, like, I've been raised in the same kind of environment. You know, I was on my own as a young girl, and I lived a very violent life too. And I've changed, and that was because I really wanted to. I was sick and tired of being that person. And I feel really good about who I am today. Like, although, I mean, there is still this other stuff, but I'm taking it one day at a time. And I am changing. And I think Rick is capable of doing that.
We always have to be mindful of our weakness. And like my grandfather said, everyone falls, but it's the great man and woman that gets up and tries again.
I believe in my people. I absolutely believe And these men, I absolutely believe in their goodness, in their gentleness, in their kindness, and in their lovingness. I absolutely believe that about Native people. I believe that about all races. What do I bring? I bring my healing story. I bring my healing experiences. I bring the story of where I've taken the wrong turn and what happened and how it was that I got back on track. I bring the story that change is possible. Not only possible, but is there if one is willing and has the courage. And we certainly have the strength to facilitate this change.